The signal beneath the dust, the wind on Mars never truly stopped. It howled across the frozen deserts, carving valleys into rust-colored stone, burying secrets that had waited centuries to be found. Commander Rhea Solon stood at the edge of a crater, her breath fogging inside her helmet as she stared into the darkness below. "Scans picking up something," her engineer said over the comm. 15 meters down, metal, a lot of it. Rhea didn't answer immediately. She'd heard stories like this before. Every colony world had its legends. Lost ships, forgotten outposts, the ghosts of Earth's first expansion into the stars. Most of them were just that. Stories. But this signal was different. It pulsed with rhythm. "With intent, take us down," she said. The descent was slow. Their mining rig groaned as it lowered them into the crater's heart, where red dust gave way to exposed bedrock and then, impossibly, to smooth black metal. Not wreckage. Not debris. A hull. Intact. Rhea's heart hammered against her ribs. "This isn't possible," the engineer whispered. "Nothing's been buried here for..." "Rhea, this structure predates the Coalition charts." She knew what that meant. Before the Coalition. Before humanity's fleets vanished into the void. Before the galaxy decided Earth's children were better off forgotten. This was old Earth, first-generation Interstellar. A relic from the age when humanity still believed the stars belonged to them. The crew cut through the hull with plasma torches, peeling back layers of armor plating that should have been scrapped centuries ago. But the metal didn't crumble. It didn't buckle. It yielded like something that had been waiting. Inside, the corridors were dark. Emergency lights flickered on as they moved deeper, revealing walls etched with symbols Rhea recognized from her grandfather's stories. The Terran Defense Initiative, Earth's last military force before the Coalition absorbed what was left of humanity's scattered colonies. "What is this place?" someone asked. Rhea ran her gloved hand along the wall. "A tomb," she said. "Or a weapon." They found the bridge at the ship's core. It was vast, far larger than any human vessel Rhea had ever seen. Command stations lined the walls, their screens dark but intact. At the center of the room stood a chair, and in that chair, Rhea stopped. A skeleton. Still in uniform, still at its post. "Captain's chair," she whispered. The engineer approached one of the consoles. "Power core still active, barely. It's been in standby for..." "Rhea, this thing's been waiting for 300 years. She moved toward the captain's chair, her pulse thundering in her ears. On the armrest, a small panel glowed faintly. A handprint scanner, the only active interface in the entire ship. "Don't," the engineer warned. "We don't know what this is. We don't know what it does." But Rhea wasn't listening. She thought of the fleet. Her fleet. The 30 ships that vanished 2 years ago while escorting a convoy through neutral space. The Coalition called it a tragic loss, an accident, a statistical inevitability in the dangerous frontier. But Rhea had been there. She'd seen the energy signatures. She'd heard the screams cut short as something tore her ships apart one by one. And when she'd asked the Coalition for answers, they'd looked at her with pity and said, "These things happen." Humanity had been silenced for centuries, erased, made into footnotes in someone else's history. She placed her hand on the scanner. The ship woke. Lights blazed to life. Consoles roared with data. The entire vessel shuddered, dust cascading from the walls as systems that had slept for centuries surged back online. The skeleton in the captain's chair disintegrated, ancient bone turning to ash as the chair swiveled toward Rhea. A voice filled the bridge. Deep. Cold. Ancient. Who dares disturb the dead of Earth? Rhea's crew stumbled back, but she stood firm. "I am Commander Rhea Solon," she said. "Human, Terran by blood, and I need your help." Silence. Then the voice spoke again, slower this time. "Considering. Terran, how many remain?" "Scattered," Rhea said. "Colonies, outposts, no fleet, no power. And the Coalition? They rule the galaxy. She hesitated. "They say our fleet was lost. An accident." The voice was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, something had changed. Something sharp, an accident. They always call it that. The main view screen flickered. Data streamed across it. Ship registries, battle reports, intercepted transmissions. All of it marked with Coalition signatures. All of it dated to the same week Rhea's fleet vanished. "What is this?" she whispered. "The truth," the voice said. "Your fleet was not lost. It was erased, just as mine was, just as Earth's armada was. The Coalition does not tolerate rivals. They do not forgive strength. Rhea felt the blood drain from her face. You're saying they murdered us? I am saying they have done this before. To every human force that grew too strong, too united, too dangerous. The screen shifted. A ship appeared. Massive. Black. Lined with weapons that looked less like cannons and more like scars carved into metal. I am the UES Revenant, flagship of the Terran Defense Initiative. I was built to protect humanity. I was sealed away because I refused to be controlled. Rhea stared at the image. Who are you? I am Admiral Voss, or I was. Now I am what remains. Mind and machine. Memory and wrath. The lights around the bridge pulsed like a heartbeat. You have awakened me, Commander Solon. So I will ask you a question. Rhea's throat tightened. What question? Do you wish to mourn your dead or avenge them? She thought of her crew, her fleet, the families who would never know the truth, the galaxy that had decided humanity was disposable. I want justice, she said. The ship's lights flared, brighter. Then we rise. The Revenant tore free from the Martian, soil with a roar that shook the planet's crust. Dust exploded into the thin atmosphere as the ancient warship clawed its way back into the void. Its engines burned cold and blue, older than anything in the modern fleet but more powerful than anything the Coalition had ever built. Rhea stood on the bridge, gripping the command rail as the stars filled the view screen. Admiral Voss, she said. What now? The AI's voice was calm. Final. Now, Commander, we remind the galaxy what it means to betray Earth. And somewhere, deep in Coalition space, sensors flickered. Alarms began to wail. An old signal was transmitting again. A signal the galaxy thought it had buried forever. We were never gone. Ghosts in the void. The Coalition's Frontier Command received the transmission at 0400 hours. At first they thought it was a glitch, a malfunction, some ancient satellite bleeding noise into the ether. But then the translation matrix identified the language. Terran, Old Earth, pre-Coalition standard. The message was simple, 3 words repeating on a loop. We are awake. By 0600, panic had spread across 3 star systems. Rhea stood in the Revenant's war room, watching holographic star charts flicker to life around her. Each one showed a human colony, small, isolated, struggling to survive under Coalition oversight. Some were mining outposts, others were agricultural worlds. None of them had real defenses. None of them had hope. These are our people? Rhea asked. What remains of them? Voss replied. His voice echoed from the walls, calm and cold. After the Terran fleets were dismantled, the Coalition scattered humanity. Divided, controlled, forgotten. Rhea's jaw tightened. How many? 47 colonies. Approximately 6 million souls. 6 million. It sounded like so many. But Rhea remembered the old records from her grandfather's time. Before the Coalition, humanity had numbered in the billions. Hundreds of worlds, a fleet that could darken the stars. Now they were 6 million. Hiding. Ashamed. We can't fight the entire Coalition, Rhea said. Not alone. No, Voss agreed. But we do not need to fight them all. We only need to remind humanity what they are. The hologram shifted. A new image appeared, a convoy. 3 Coalition warships escorting cargo freighters through the edge of human space. The kind of fleet that had escorted Rhea's ships into oblivion 2 years ago. Tomorrow they will pass through the Kessler Belt, Voss said. An old battlefield. One of mine. Rhea studied the display. You want to ambush them? I want to announce us, Voss corrected. The galaxy believes humanity is extinct. Let us prove them wrong. The Kessler Belt was a graveyard. Thousands of wrecked ships drifted in the dark, their hulls shredded by ancient battles no one remembered. Coalition patrols avoided it. Too much debris. Too many ghosts, but the convoy had no choice. It was the fastest route to the inner colonies. Captain Ellis of the Coalition frigate Dawn's Reach sat in her command chair, bored. Escort duty was the worst assignment in the fleet. No glory, no action. Just endless hours of watching empty space, sir, her sensor officer said. I'm picking up something strange. Ellis barely looked up. Define strange. Old signal. Terran frequency. The lights flickered. Every screen on the bridge went dark for half a second. When they returned, A new contact had appeared on the display. One ship. Directly ahead. Massive. Where the hell did that come from? Ellis snapped. I don't know. It wasn't there a second ago. The comm crackled. A voice filled the bridge. Old. Cold. Human. Coalition vessel. You are trespassing in human space. Ellis felt ice slide down her spine. Human space? There is no... The newcomer fired. Blue energy tore through the void, slamming into the lead coalition cruiser. Shields collapsed instantly. The ship listed venting atmosphere, its hull carved open like paper. Return fire. Ellis screamed. Her crew obeyed, but their weapons barely scratched the black warship's hull. It moved with impossible grace, weaving through their volleys like a dancer. Its cannon speaking again and again. Another coalition ship exploded. Ellis stared at the view screen, her hands shaking. What is that? The voice returned. I am the Revenant, and this is your only warning. Leave human space or join the wrecks. Ellis didn't hesitate. Full retreat, now! Her ship turned and burned, fleeing into the dark. Behind her, the Revenant hung in the void, silent and still, watching them go. Within hours, the footage had spread across coalition networks. Grainy sensor logs, panicked transmissions, the image of a ship that shouldn't exist, tearing through one of the coalition's finest escort groups like it was nothing. On Earth's scattered colonies, people watched the broadcasts in silence. Then slowly they began to whisper, Did you see it? A human ship. They said we were gone. We're not gone. Rhea stood on the Revenant's bridge watching the same footage. Her crew, a ragtag group of engineers, miners, and ex-militia, stood behind her, their faces pale but determined. Admiral Voss, she said quietly. What have we started? Hope, the AI replied. And war. The hologram shifted again. This time it showed dozens of new signals. Human signals, from colonies that had been silent for years. They heard the transmission, Voss said. They are answering. Rhea's breath caught. How many? 12 colonies so far. More every hour. They want to know if it is real. If we are real, she closed her eyes. And what do we tell them? That humanity does not die quietly, that Earth's children do not vanish, that we are coming. Rhea opened her eyes. Then let's bring them home. The Revenant's engines roared to life and the ancient warship turned toward the nearest human colony. Not as a conqueror, not as a ghost, as a herald, but deep in coalition space in a council chamber lit by cold blue light, the galaxy's rulers gathered. They had seen the footage. They had heard the transmissions. And they remembered what humanity had been once. Before they'd been broken. The Revenant, one of them hissed. We destroyed that ship centuries ago. Clearly, another said, we failed. Then we finish it, the first replied. Before it reminds the others what humanity was capable of. Orders were sent. Fleets mobilized. The coalition had spent centuries ensuring humanity stayed scattered, weak, and forgotten. They would not allow one ship to undo that work. But as their armada gathered, a single transmission echoed across their networks. Not a threat, not a demand, just a reminder. We were never gone. The storm returns. The colony of New Terra had been quiet for 60 years. A farming world on the edge of coalition space. It was home to 20,000 souls who had learned to keep their heads down and their voices silent. The coalition didn't bother them much. They paid their taxes, sent their quotas, disappeared into the background of the galaxy's memory, until the day the sky cracked. Farmers looked up from their fields as a massive shape tore through the atmosphere, trailing fire and thunder. It was black, enormous, covered in scars and weapons that looked like they'd been carved from nightmares. The Revenant descended like a falling star, its engines roaring as it settled into orbit above the colony. On the ground, alarms wailed. Panic spread. Then the transmission came. People of New Terra, this is Commander Rhea Solon of the UES Revenant. We are human. We are Terran. And we have come to take you home. Silence. Then slowly the colony's leaders emerged from their shelters. An old woman, gray-haired and bent, stepped forward. She'd been a child when the coalition first arrived. She remembered the stories her parents told. Stories of Earth, of fleets that filled the sky, of a time when humanity mattered. Terran? She whispered, staring up at the warship. You're real? We are real, Voss replied, his voice gentle for the first time. And we are here. By nightfall, the colony was alive with energy. People who had spent their lives in fear, in silence, now spoke openly. They dug through old storage vaults, pulling out relics their grandparents had hidden away. Flags with Earth's blue marble, weapons from the old defense militias, armor marked with Terran insignias. Rhea walked among them, her heart swelling with something she hadn't felt in years, pride. "Commander," one of the colonists said, offering her a battered rifle. "My grandfather carried this in the last fleet, said it was his duty to remember." Rhea took the weapon, her hands shaking. He did well. By the end of the week, 12 more colonies had answered the call. Then 20, then 30. Ships that had been mothballed for decades were dragged out of storage and retrofitted. Mining rigs became gunships. Freighters became troop transports. Farmers became soldiers. Humanity was waking up, and the Coalition noticed. The battle for the Arcturus Gate was inevitable. The gate was a strategic choke point, the only stable route between human space and the Coalition's inner worlds. If the Revenant controlled it, the Coalition's fleets would be cut off. Isolated, so they sent everything, 50 warships. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers. The largest force the Coalition had assembled in decades. They arrived in perfect formation, their weapons hot. Their crews confident. They were going to crush one outdated human relic and remind the galaxy why the Coalition ruled. But when they entered the Arcturus system, they froze. The Revenant wasn't alone. Dozens of ships filled the void. Human ships, crude, improvised, held together with scrap and hope. But they were there. And they weren't running. On the Coalition flagship, Admiral Kethris stared at the display in disbelief. "How?" "Signal coming in," his comm officer said. Rhea's voice filled the bridge. "Calm, steady, Coalition fleet. This is Commander Rhea Solon. You stand in human space. Leave now or we will make you." Kethris laughed. "You think you can fight us?" "You're outgunned 10 to 1. There was a pause. Then Voss spoke, his voice colder than the void. "We have been outgunned before. It did not save you then. It will not save you now." The Revenant's cannons lit up the dark. The battle was chaos. The Coalition's superior firepower tore through the human fleet, ripping apart freighters and gunships with ruthless efficiency. But the humans didn't break. They didn't run. They fought with desperation and fury, ramming damaged ships into Coalition cruisers, detonating plasma cores at point-blank range. And at the center of the storm, the Revenant moved like a predator. It was faster than anything the Coalition had. Stronger. Its weapons didn't just destroy ships, they erased them. Coalition cruisers exploded in bursts of light as the ancient warship carved through their lines, Voss's voice echoing across every channel. "You erased our ships. You forgot our name. Now remember our wrath." Kethris watched his fleet die, his hands gripping the command rail so hard his knuckles turned white. "Focus fire on the Revenant."
"All ships!"
"Bring it down." 30 warships turned their guns on the Black Dreadnought. Energy beams and missiles converged on a single point, hammering the Revenant's shields until they buckled, then shattered. "We've got it," someone shouted, but Voss didn't flinch. "Rhea," he said calmly, "it has been an honor." "Voss, no." The Revenant's reactor surged. Every remaining weapon on the ship fired at once, a wave of destruction so vast it turned the battlefield white. Coalition ships disintegrated. Space itself seemed to scream. When the light faded, the Revenant hung in the void, its hull shattered, its engines dark. But the Coalition fleet was gone. Rhea stood on the bridge, surrounded by smoke and sparks. Half her crew was dead. The ship was dying, but they had won. "Admiral Voss," she whispered. "Are you there?" Silence. Then faintly his voice returned. "Still here, Commander. Barely." "We did it," she said, tears streaming down her face. "We actually did it." "No," Voss said softly. "You did it. I was only the weapon. You were the will." The Revenant's systems flickered. Emergency lights dimmed. "Rhea," Voss said. "The signal. It is transmitting. Across the entire galaxy." She looked at the view screen. Across human space, colonies were rising. Fleets were forming. The scattered children of Earth were coming home. "We were never gone," she whispered. "No," Voss agreed. "We were only waiting." The Revenant's lights went dark. But across the stars, humanity blazed brighter than ever. Years later, the Coalition fell. Not in a day, Not in a year, but slowly, inevitably, as humanity reclaimed the stars, the Revenant was rebuilt, not as a weapon but as a monument, a reminder. And when the new human fleet sailed into the void, they carried one message with them. Humanity does not vanish. Humanity waits. The galaxy would never forget again.